Hi, and thanks for listening to the Community Advocate podcast. Today we're catching up with opposition charities spokesman Senator Dean Smith, who has taken the time to chat with us about the three major inquiries that are currently underway into the sector. Welcome, Senator.
Hi, Greg. How are you going?
Good, thanks. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So, firstly, keen to get your views. Basically, how important do you feel each of those major inquiries into the NFP charity community sector are, of which we're talking about the Productivity Commission report into philanthropy, the Blueprint Expert Reference Group, the BERG, and the DSS inquiry, the stronger, more diverse and independent community sector. I know that's a bit of a hamburger with a lot in terms of a question. I'll leave it up to you if you want to go off the top or just talk generally. And yeah, pretty much. What
Absolutely. Do you think? Well, Greg, again, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. I'd say a couple of things first. In everything that we do at the moment, it's important to maintain and build high levels of public confidence in our charity sector and our not-for-profit sector. It makes our country a better place when this community is thriving, first point. But in the current set of circumstances, cost of living crisis, but a charity and profit sector that has come out of dealing with natural disasters, still probably recovering from the exhaustion of the COVID experience. It's important that I think myself and Andrew Leigh, as the responsible minister at the moment, provide a high level of public confidence and support for the charity and not-for-profit sector. So that in my mind is a non-negotiable. I think my job in the first 2 years coming into opposition is to be eyes and ears, to make myself available to the sector, to listen carefully to what they are saying and try to discern what are those issues that have always been issues and what are those issues that are more relevant or have a higher sense of urgency attached to them at this particular time. My concern at the moment is that there has been a lot of emphasis on process, but not enough emphasis on outcome. So I am someone who believes that, as a general rule, Productivity Commission processes are valuable. The process of a draft report, the process of being able to see submissions, the process of being able to comment on those draft recommendations, I think is a very, very sound process. But when I think about the Productivity Commission report, when I think about the Blueprint, when I think about the DSS inquiry, we're going to get into a situation very, very quickly that we would have been talking around, I think, many, many similar and familiar issues, but people won't be able to point to anything that has actually changed. Now, it may well be that the sector is much more patient about these things than I have been given the impression that they are. And it may well be that the sector is very patient. But I just think that given the experiences that the sector had coming into the cost of living crisis and added to the cost of living crisis, and the cost of living crisis isn't a political point. The ACNC is reporting on it now, the Salvation Army. And I think we all know from our personal experiences, this is real. This is real for very, very large numbers of people in our community, many who have never been in this situation before. So my great hesitation, having been patient and listening and giving the processes the benefit of the doubt, is that we could get to the end of this year and no tangible outcomes at all. No tangible outcomes at all. So I'll be disappointed about that and disappointed for the sector, because I think that the sector is looking for statements of firm affirmation, support. I get that, but they're also looking for change. They're also looking for change. So they would be my opening remarks, specifically on the Productivity Commission report, the draft report. So we now know that is with the government. So at Senate estimates just 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to inquire with the Productivity Commission and the government. So that report is with the government now. Now, that report has turned out to be very, very contentious in some parts of the charity and not-for-profit sector. So on one level, that's disappointing. But I do believe that the changes that are suggested in that report do not enjoy the widespread support of the charity and not-for-profit sector. And I would add to that the draft recommendations are very heavily focused towards what I would call sort of regulatory change rather than the transformative change. Now, I'm not saying that the transformative change is not possible, but my strong sense from listening closely to people in the sector is that the Productivity Commission report will not live up to the expectations that we had of it early. Now, of course, our ambition should be to significantly increase philanthropic giving in our country. But the idea that we might sort of make some people losers and make other people new winners, I don't think has been the right approach. So you know, no one gets marked down for having a go. But my strong sense is that people, this is not going to live up to expectations. And the revelation for me, you know, wanting to give people the benefit of the doubt, the revelation for me was at the Senate estimates when I asked the Productivity Commission inquiry themselves, asked the Productivity Commission themselves, had you actually modelled and quantified what the cumulative effect of these draft recommendations would be on giving? They haven't done that. So it could be an opportunity lost. It could be an opportunity lost. I would like to have seen the Blueprint Reference Group, full of good people, don't doubt that, full of very, very good people. I just think the timeframes around that should have been a bit more compressed because, again, in the DSS report that looked at the consultation process, look, it doesn't strike me as if there are new issues here. So we've gone through a period where we've recanvassed old and existing issues, but still don't have a timeframe for change or a timeframe for implementation. Now, I'm wary to be, I'm not going to be hard-nosed political about this because I just don't think that takes us very far. And I'm respectful for that level of exhaustion that the charity and not-for-profit sector experiences for all the reasons that we've just talked about. So they would be my high level observations. And I would probably approach the philanthropic giving exercise by, rather than trying to find changes and reform at one end of the giving experience, I probably would have refocused the effort on the bigger giving experiences to get that transformative change. I just don't think we're going to get the transformative change from this end. I think we're going to get it from the alternative end. And that's an opportunity missed, I think, in the Productivity Commission report.
That's fairly good, fairly good, says me. Yes, the context, you know, that we're tinkering at the edges a little bit with this, as you just said, you know, when it's not really getting over the big rock in terms of, and there is a sense, I get the same sense from some that, yes, all of these things have been talked about for a long time. And as this, we're just some conversations today, but echoing what you said, yeah, will it actually move things along? Maybe not. It's always good to talk about it. You've got to, even if it's done in an incremental way, you've got to try and shift it. But yes, in a sense, yes. Well,
and
it is
interesting. You know, the sector has just been through the most remarkable of experiences, the pandemic. And if we can't use the pandemic to really catalyst ourselves into a brand new way of thinking, well, then what's the purpose of a pandemic experience? Because to find ourselves having gone through the pandemic just to be where we were before the pandemic, that's not progress at all. That's absolutely a missed opportunity.
So was there, having said what you just said about, you know, the difference is what you would hope would be the outcome is in, you know, systemic change. Are there individual, would there be one thing out of each inquiry that you would like to see? I mean, that's getting down to the tactical, I suppose, and it doesn't solve the problem that you've just articulated in terms of change. But with each one, is there one that you would say, look, at the very least, it'd be nice to see this, this, and this, or is that too low?
Well, I would imagine that the purpose in having three different inquiries was to tackle sort of a variety of different issues in each. And I think that they do canvass different sorts of issues that are important for the sector. I think the priority at the moment needs to be two things. It needs to be making sure that we are absolutely, as far as possible, standing out of the way so that charities and the not-for-profit sector can do their business, right? Because the level of frustration that I sense with some of the regulatory changes, whether it's the ATO changes in regards to the self-assessment requirements, whether it's the implementation of the Fair Work changes, what I see is that sort of cumulative burden, or that layering upon sort of layer upon layer upon layer of additional stress and frustration, which in themselves, people are concerned about, but they're not crippling. But cumulatively, they will just kill the will, kill the ambition, kill the aspiration, because people think, I really, really want to be part of this. I want to be doing my bit, but it's just too hard. It's just too hard. So it's interesting, in the last 6 months, I have noticed that more and more participants in the sector have sort of been reaching out to me saying, okay, we've been giving people giving the government the benefit of the doubt. We've been engaging in the right way, but our level of frustration is now sort of at a tipping point. So, Senator Smith, how can you apply some of your influence and some of your political advocacy to help our issues? So I would say it's the cumulative effect that is really crippling people. And of course, then there's the second point I'd make, is that there's this broader societal influence that can't be ignored. So with employment levels at the level they are, which is a positive thing for people and for families, etc., the ability to find volunteers is harder and harder. So we're asking a smaller group of people to do more. And I think there are some things that the government could have done to sort of better facilitate, particularly older people in retirement, for making contributions to charities in the not-for-profit sector. Then, in addition to that, we have the effect and the influence of the cost of living challenges on certain parts of our community, and people having to go and seek help who would never have thought that they were seeking help before. So there are these societal things happening as well, which I think don't get enough attention at the moment, are not getting enough attention in terms of the policy discussion and the policy making. So, the context in which we are operating is different, and it is harder. We would hope that it doesn't remain hard. I mean, it's always going to be in a state of change, but we would hope that it doesn't remain too difficult for too long for people. And I was speaking to some sector participants the other day. It's a really interesting strategic question for the sector. And of course, when we talk about the sector, it's easy to think of it like this, but it's actually there's an ecosystem of sectors, if that makes sense. So strategically, is it better to have these goals that are so ambitious that they never get realised, and then people's level of confidence diminishes over time? Or is it better to have an agenda that says, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And in the process, you're actually building confidence, because you're actually able to achieve the little things. But the cumulative effect of being able to achieve those little things is an increase in public confidence, and before you know it, you've been able to achieve the bigger things, or the transformative things. So I think sometimes we think that it has to be one giant step, when in actual fact, I think it is lots of little steps. And this is not an excuse for doing nothing, but it's a lot of little steps that cumulatively take us to that transformative point.
Thanks very much, Senator. Thanks again for listening, and join us again next time on the Community Advocate podcast.